Yo, what up? My name is Kari. I'm gonna be going through my Yamato build as of the 6th of September. This is my build. This is what I use in all my games. I'm currently, as of recording this, even though the websites are down, as of the last update, I am the number 5 Yamato in the world, according to Tracklock. And I'm number 82 on the leaderboard for all characters. I've played a lot of this character. I've experimented with a few different builds from other people, and I found something that kind of works for me that I think is the best. At the moment, I'm sitting around a 63% win rate with Yamato. I think she is insanely fun. I think she's insanely difficult, but I think she has one of the best carry potentials. Obviously, this will be subject to change because this game is in active development. A lot of the stuff I imagine will change a lot. If there is any changes, if there's any updates to the build, I do another video like this, I'll put them in the comments, or I'll link it to another video, or I might just delete this video and upload a new one. We'll see when it gets to that. So let's just go through the build at the moment. This is kind of my general build that I will go with every game. Yamato, in my opinion, sucks early game, like really bad. Like, I think she's not a great laner in general. She's a very close range hero, and she doesn't have very many escape options until you get her ult, in which case you do have kind of a way to get out of fights that you don't want to be in or engage a bit better. So a big focus of our laning phase is just staying alive, basically making it to mid game. Is our goal, and dying as little as possible, which is something, you know, even I struggle with into certain lanes, especially because, you know, along with everyone, I'm still learning this game. But, you know, I've put in a significant amount of hours, and I feel like this is the most solid build that I can come up with. So first off, we start off with Healing Right. Healing Right's super nice in lane because it means that you can take a lot more damage than normal, and you can stay in lane as long as possible to get as much value out of your laning as possible. It's super nice. You can heal basically from half with how low health this hero is. You can heal basically from half up until full and stay in lane, and kind of, especially if you're in duo lane, you can kind of, you know, leech off the your duos doing the CSing when you kind of can't. Super important, makes it super kind of, it really makes laning on this character way easier than otherwise, I think. The other option instead of Healing Right that I use sometimes is extra regen, and that's kind of dependent on how well you think you can get that Healing Right off. Although I do prefer, like, if you're leaning into a Geist or something, or a 7 who is hitting you with orbs or hitting you with nades, or a Kelvin even who's hitting you with nades while you're in the shop or trying to get your Healing Right off, I would maybe go with extra regen. But Healing Right is super important for when you go into the jungle later on, around your 10-minute mark. Earlier than that, when the tier 2s spawn around 7 minutes. Super important because Healing Right is not cancelled by jungle minions. So if we go in here, we pop Healing Right, we're half health, we cast this on ourselves, they're not going to stop you Healing Right. You can kind of heal through, at least not in this case because we're doing a tier 3. But you can heal through most, like, early game jungle camps, especially like tier 2s and stuff. So Healing Right's super important going from your early game into your mid game. It's a really nice item. Next up, we have Restorative Shot. Really nice item. 7% bullet resist, 8% weapon damage. Going to be really good for keeping you in your lane, making sure you get that sustain off. With Restorative Shot, compared to Mystic Shot, which you might be more familiar with, it does proc on every single shot of your weapon, instead of just the middle one like normal, like Mystic Shot. So when you would normally proc a Mystic Shot only on the center pellet, Restorative Shot will proc it off all pellets, and you get a nice 35 heal, basically, off anytime you hit an enemy hero. So even if you kind of... Okay, my game's bugging. Even if you kind of hit them barely, or hit them with 1 pellet for 1 damage across the lane, you're going to get that nice 35 heal, which will be really good. It's good into minions. It's just a fantastic item for your sustain. Then we go into our melee and spirit lifesteal. These will basically mean that you can start... They also kind of help with your jungling early on, especially your tier 1 camps. You get a big heal off those ones doing your melees. It also means that you can one-shot minions down from 75% health with a heavy melee, if they will be off cooldown. You can kind of like drop them down from 70% HP, which is going to let you CS a lot quicker because your weapons suck so much in laning. You can kind of hit them down significantly from, I'd say, about half health. It's really useful for that, whereas normally you'd have to probably wait until that bar goes a bit of that lighter pink. So both of these are really good. They're also really important in your kind of early game burst, because Spirit Strike does apply Spirit Resist Shred. Generally, by the time you get this, you should have your 2 unlocked. So you can go for your burst into the enemy laner. With this item, you get to do it a bit earlier. I'll go over the rotation in a little bit, but it is just going to be nice to get a little bit of healing off, especially into very static characters like McGinnis, who can't really move away from you very quickly. It's a really nice item to just, especially healing melee lifesteal, just to keep your sustain up. Hey guys, Future Kari here. I'm editing this video right now, and it's over an hour long. I know I said I was going to go through the burst rotation, but I will likely put that in a separate video because it's already really long, and I don't want to make it even longer. So look out for that one, I guess. I'll throw it into a separate video. I'll do a laning video as well later, and a jungling video as well later, so keep an eye out for those ones. Hopefully over the next week, we'll see. Anyway, enjoy. Next we go into close quarters. Just a nice item because generally you're going to be very close when you're fighting. If you're fighting in the enemy lane, you don't have the range of characters like Vindicta or Seven even to really fight from far. So you're generally going to want to be close to get value out of your burst anyway. So close quarters is just nice to have. Plus that 85 bullet shield means you'll live longer into hazes, wraiths, Vindictas, anyone who's really super reliant on weapon damage. From there we rush Soul Shredder bullets. This is because we're getting a Spirit Amp and Lifesteal from Shredder bullets. Basically, it's really nice when you go into jungle and with your laning phase, because you can start to kind of shred Spirit Resist to get more damage from your weapons earlier on, which is nice. Also, you're going to be able to lifesteal off those, and a lot of your damage is going to come from your abilities anyway, compared to other characters who kind of are a hybrid. You're a very ability focused character, so getting that Spirit Lifesteal early on is just nice. You're going to deal more damage, you're going to heal a little bit of health back. It is just a nice item to have, basically. From there, we basically fill out our slots. Hollow Point wards are nice, above 60% health. You're going to deal more damage. It's just a nice to have. You get a bit of spirit power back as well, so it works into your build generally, and you get a little bit more spirit shield health to play into other spirit forward characters, wraiths cards, things like that. Sprint boost, really nice. It makes this character not feel so slow, especially when you need to start rotating and you're going to start jungling, which I'll get into a little bit later. It's super important because it means that you won't feel so slow. You'll start regenerating more in between when you're moving from lane to lane, when you're moving from camp to camp, when you're moving back into your lane, all that kind of thing. It's just going to make you move faster. I mean, it's sprint boots. You move faster, you get there quicker, you can get out quicker. It's just a very nice to have item. Mystic Burst, you're a spirit forward character. You get more spirit shield, you get more weapon damage. You deal 35 bonus damage on your abilities, on all your abilities. It is really nice. I think this only applies on your 1, which just another 35 damage is going to be nice, but mainly we're doing this so that we can get improved burst later on. After we get that, we're kind of, by this point, you should kind of be out of laning phase. So we're kind of around the 10-minute mark, maybe earlier, depending on how good your jungling is and how good your souls per minute is. But I'll get into that when we go over kind of the jungling aspect of this character. From there, we rush straight for Torment Pulse. Torment Pulse is super important on this character because most of the time, you are going to be in and close to people. All of your abilities, or your main ability, your 2, gets you in there, gets you close, is going to start proccing that Torment Pulse. really nice. It's just free damage. You don't have to think about it. It's going to get them lower. It's going to proc some of your other stuff that we'll get into in a little bit. It's just really nice. You're always in there anyway. Might as well get it. From there, we have a choice basically between Mystic Vuln and Healbane, depending on, you get both of these eventually, but they're kind of dependent on what you're playing into. If there is a lot of characters that are already life stealing or have a lot of base healing or base life steal, things like Geists drain life, Abrams in general with his regen, Dynamos with their healing, there's a bunch of things. Anyone who's buying Spirit lifesteal early, it's going to be good. If you don't have a lot of that, or they haven't, or you kind of get to this point before people are buying most of their Spirit lifesteal or Bullet lifesteal items, you can go for Mystic Vuln, because Mystic Vulnerability is going to start stacking Spirit resists, especially with Torment Pulse. It's very easy to apply. You're going to have that Spirit resist on them already before you even get off your 1 or your 3 before, you know, in the fight. Healbane, really nice. Once again, if you get it straight off the Mystic Vulnerability, even if they have no healing, this item is super nice. Every time you get a kill, basically you're going to heal back for 350 HP, which at this point is like almost half your health, about a third of your health. So every time you get a kill on an enemy hero, if you are in a prolonged fight, you're going to heal back to 350. You're going to heal back 350. You are not going to really, you're going to be back and be able to continue fighting. It's really nice for that. It means you can get out of fights it means you sustain longer in fights. It means you get into and out of fights with way more health. Basically, it's a really nice item. Basically core on this character. Basically these three, like all of this stuff is basically your core. After that, we get Cold Front. Basically when we get our first flex slot, so you need to focus on getting that, either that first Walker or this first Guardians down. Otherwise you're going to fill out the rest of these. Cold Front is really nice because it's going to help with your burst. So when you engage in a fight, you can pop Cold Front straight away. You're going to start putting Healbanes on not just the person that's right in front of you, but also anyone who might be behind you, all around you. You're going to put those Healbanes, that Mystic Vulnerability on that, so your fight can go longer. You can deal more damage to those people. Even though Torment Pulse kind of does the same thing, when we get escalating exposure later, this is going to help build up those stacks on it way easier. From there we go Kinetic Dash. Kinetic Dash is really nice. It gives you basically just an extra dash for free. It's on a 5-second cooldown, I believe, maybe longer, 10. So, you know, it's going to give you extra ammo, which as Yamato, you already struggle with your ammo capacity. Her ammo capacity is not very good for long drawn out fights, and her reload is quite significant for how much ammo she has. It's basically going to mean you can rotate into other fights way easier, or rotate through your jungle to other lanes, to just from your lane to other lanes, back to your lane, like way quicker. Also helps you just get it across the map to a team fight if you're jungling. Just a really great item, all in all. Plus it gives you extra health and regen. Spirit Lifesteal, pretty self-explanatory. You're doing most of your damage with Spirit, so might as well get Spirit Lifesteal. Really nice. Oh, I forgot to mention it. With Kinetic Dash, generally you'll only have 1 or 2 flex slots by this point. Your second flex slot should be saved for Spirit Lifesteal. So if you do get this, you sell your Hollow Point wards instead of that. You do lose out on a bit of the Spirit Shield health, and you do lose out a bit of Spirit, but you've already got plenty of stuff that can make up for that. Spirit Lifesteal is super important. You want to buy this with your second flex slot, but if you don't, you are going to sell Healing Right for it, basically. Helps you jungle because you're dealing spirit damage with all your stuff. Helps you in fights because, like, as good as Healbane is, you can only proc it basically when you get a kill. So this is just going to help you sustain to get those kills. It is really nice for that. Then into Improved Burst, really nice. It depends kind of how well you're doing on your economy, depending on which item you get here. If you are at like maybe 5k, if you kind of, you get Spirit Lifesteal, you kind of go into a bunch of fights, you go into a bunch of jungles, whatever. You're kind of around 5k, might as well just jungle a little bit more, get the escalating exposure further, because it's going to pay off more than the Mystic Burst. It's going to help you clear jungles way quicker than Mystic Burst, things like that. So by getting escalating earlier, you can basically essentially get both items earlier, because you are going to be able to jungle quicker. You're going to be able to deal more damage in your team fights, in your 1v1s, all that kind of stuff. It's really nice for that, so you can afford your Improved Burst quicker. Okay, 10% max health bonus damage is just great. It's just flat 10%, no matter how tanky they are. It's just nice. Gives you spirit power, weapon damage, all that kind of stuff. Gives you survivability with your spirit shield health. Next, after that, we go into Mystic Shot. This is just to help you proc your escalating exposure, your heal bane, all that kind of stuff. It's just additional ways for you to proc, and because you are mostly building into spirit, it means your autos will deal more damage. Generally, you will not have a slot for this, so you sell restorative shot for this by the time you get here. Next, into healing booster. You're dealing mostly spirit damage. That means you will get more health from your spirit lifesteal. You're gonna get crazy health. It means heal banes on other characters with the AoE who might buy heal bane. Things like Abrams who might buy heal bane. Any character, basically if you are healing, people are going to buy heal bane. This is nice. It reduces that healing reduction by 15%. It increases your healing by 25%. It means you're gonna heal even more of your heal banes and your spirit lifesteal and your 3, okay? Because 3 does heal you for base 174, at least with this. Scales with spirit. It goes up to 10% of your max HP, so I think at tier 2, it's going to heal more. I don't know why it doesn't change. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. Enduring Speed. This is kind of a buy when it feels right item. Basically, if you've just got 1250 laying around, you kind of feel like you're getting movement slowed too much, or you need to rotate quicker, this is a great buy then. Generally, if there is a lot of movement slow, like Kelvin, or if people are buying slowing bullets or mystic slow, buy this one instead of probably kinetic dash. Even though it's not, I don't think it's as good as kinetic dash, it does still provide you with a bit of nice rotation. So once we filled out that, we basically get into our end game. So this is when we rush Refresher. Refresher is super important. With escalating exposure, if you have jungled a shit ton and basically get back here at like 10k for some reason, which I've had happen to me, especially if I get super efficient in the jungle, save up a little bit by escalating exposure straight into Refresher, just because this item is very nice. You can also buy this before escalating exposure if you feel like you need to be in fights way longer. If you need your double ult, it's going to be super useful. Yeah, it's just super important. It's basically the most important item on this character for your sustain, because the idea of this build is you can't die. Your ult prevents you from dying, so let's keep that up as often as possible. So Refresher is basically for your ult to refresh it once you do it. From there, we get into cooldown and duration extender. Basically, these are to just make your ult go longer and be on a shorter cooldown, and it applies to all your items. Things like Torment Pulse, it will proc quicker. So once you get this, it's gonna proc instead of every 1.5 seconds, 1.3. Once we get into superior cooldown, it's gonna proc every 1.15, 1.1. Really nice item. I think this item is super important. I think superior cooldown is super important. It helps you stack your escalating exposure quicker. It helps stack healbane faster. If for some reason you die in 1.5 seconds between your healbane procs from one fight to another one, it's just really nice. We're gonna sell, when we get to this point, we are going to sell basically, this should already be gone. We're gonna sell basically melee lifesteal first, because even though we are meleeing a lot, and we'll generally melee in our rotation anyway, I believe Spirit Strike is just better because it has a Spirit Resist Shred on it, so it's gonna stack with your Soul Shredder bullets. It's just nice. Obviously, you get both. You probably don't have 4 flex slots by now, otherwise you've basically won anyway. That's basically it. From there, we go superior cooldown on our 4. Once again, that's just going to lower that cooldown. We go down to 68 seconds between every ult. It's also going to lower the cooldown of your cold front, which is just nice to have because you want to be spamming this out as often as possible. And your refresher, so you can get basically that double ult out super often. Duration, also on your 4, it means that all of your slows, all of your debuffs, they're going to last longer. But mainly it is because your ult will last significantly longer. You get to stay in that ult, stay invincible for even longer. Just nice to have. From there, once we get our 4 flex slots, if we've got money, if we've got 4 flex slots, we're gonna go for Soul Rebirth. Once again, this is for cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction with your superior cooldown and your duration means that every time you ult, you can get out 2 full cooldowns. You can get out basically 2 full burst rotations before your ult ends. Okay, so if you're really good as well, you can, if you time it correctly, because your ult acts as a refresher as well, or an echo shot, refresher, you can basically get out tons of damage within that, I believe it's 20, it's not even 20, within that 6-second duration. you can get 3 full bursts, basically. So Soul Rebirth, really nice. In addition, because we are buying Refresher, because Yamato's ult is invincibility, it means that if you die and you have Refresher up or you have ult up, generally you'll have ult up because of the way your kind of cooldowns work, unless you die basically instantly after your ult ends and you've used Refresher. You are going to be able to either refresh and then ult, or just straight up ult out of Soul Rebirth, which means you live, which means you can fight, especially at the point at which you get this item, which you're generally looking at like a 30-second at least death timer. It's really nice to have because you can stay in those fights longer. With superior cooldown as well, it also drops the cooldown of this item to 125 seconds. So if you're staying out of fights long enough, because that's basically half of your ult cooldown, similar time to your refresh, exactly the same time as your refresh cooldown, you should have both of them up basically when you go into those fights. From there, if the game is going really long, if we're looking at like a 45+ minute game, like this is basically your core here. This is basically what every game kind of ends on, oftentimes without even Soul Rebirth, because by the time you end, you don't even have enough either gold or time to go back and buy Soul Rebirth. You're gonna get Leech to replace Spirit Lifesteal. It's just going to give you more healing off all of your abilities. It's just better than Spirit Lifesteal. Obviously, you get a bit of Blower Lifesteal in there as well. Into Spirit Overflow. This is basically to replace Close Quarters. It's going to give you more damage as you stack up your Spirit Power, because even though you are Spirit focused and ability focused as a character, you still should be autoing as often as possible, especially with things like Mystic Shot, which are going to help you proc things. If you are going really late into the game, you do get Mystic Reverb, or you can get Mystic Reverb. It's kind of optional. I like to have it sometimes, especially if the enemy team is very grouped and that you can get good value off this item, because it does, once again, it applies Spirit Lifesteal. It acts in an area. You're going to deal 40% of the damage in an area, which you deal a lot of damage. It's going to be really nice. It's on a 3-second cooldown. It's on a lower cooldown than your 1, I believe, at this stage, which I think is 4. So you basically get this off every single time you use your 1. You're going to put that on your 1, basically. We get rid of Healing Booster for this because we should already have Leech, which, even though it is, you do get less healing compared to Spirit Lifesteal and Healing Booster. You can do this. It's not always the best to have, but it is just a nice item to have. It means you're going to deal basically a bunch of damage in an AoE. Then I have some options here, just in case like things are not going great. The biggest one is Silence, Glyph, and Curse. They are really nice actives to have. You're basically going to take these when they have one problem character or multiple problem characters, and you are not caught up enough to solo them with your ult. So basically, it's really nice into ultra-fed characters that you kind of can't deal with. Silence Glyph is most of the time worse because it only applies on abilities, so things like an ultra-fed Haze it's not going to be as useful for. But if you're into like a Pocket or Bebop, Lash, Shiv, things that are spamming their abilities out and they're doing a spirit build or an ability build, this is a nice item to have. It's 3,000 gold. It's pretty cheap. But obviously, we want Curse as often as possible into those kind of problem characters because it also disarms and it prevents their item usage. If they're a good player, they will just buy debuff remover. They will get rid of this. And depending on what characters you have on your team, like if you've got a Pocket on your team, people should buy debuff remover anyway for Affliction. But if they don't, if they're not for some reason doing that, Silence Glyph is good. Otherwise, Curse. Basically, you want to buy this if there is a major problem character. Curse is your go-to. It's your bread and butter for dealing with a big problem character. If you do get this, it is going to replace your Cold Front, just because I feel like all the other items are as important, and this also deals damage. You want to focus down a single character, so let's focus on focusing down a single character. We also have Warpstone in here. It's nice to have if you are kind of struggling to get your ult off and get out of fights. It is going to be nice. I don't really ever use this. Sometimes I will. Kind of depends on what I'm playing into, but basically this is if you are struggling to kind of disengage from fights, this is going to be really useful. I'd probably take this over Close Quarters before you get Spiritual Overflow. That's kind of where I would get it. Metal Skin, good into anyone who's spamming bullet damage. You'd probably get this instead of Healing Booster. In this case, if you have Leech or Spirit Lifesteal, Healing Booster is kind of as good as it is. Or maybe you get it instead of Soul Rebirth if you don't get that far. Although, yeah, I would get it probably instead of Soul Rebirth if you are at 4 slots, but otherwise get rid of Healing Booster. Just because if If someone is ultra fed on like haze or something, they are going to be a problem. They're probably taking silencer bullets. If you can proc this, if you are out of ult and you need to proc this before, if your ult's on cooldown, sorry, you need to proc this before they come into a fight, it's going to be really good. It makes you resistant to bullets, make you immune to bullets and melee attacks. But I would say that just focus on your ult cooldown management and making sure you don't engage those fights without your ult, and you shouldn't need this, but it's there in case you need it. Next we have knockdown. It's good if you are finding people with channeled ults or Vindictors are being a problem. This is great for denying Vindictors because it pulls them out of the sky, knocks them to the ground, makes them really vulnerable. They don't have that cooldown to get back up and out of the way. Good for that. If things like Sevens are really ruining your day, Bebops with their ult, Dynamos singulating your entire team, if you somehow get ult off and you need to save your team and you feel like you can't burst them down, it's good. If you don't get caught in it and you feel like you can't burst them down, this is great. Knockdown's just good for denying basically mega ults. Decay, I don't find it super important, but I've included it in here just if you want. Once again, you would replace Cold Front for this, probably, unless you kind of buy it early. I think Healbane is just better. It's easier to put on people. Although you don't deal damage over time with Healbane, you're obviously going to get healing. Yamato's already strapped for slots. I feel like there are better items, but if you feel like an Abrams is kind of running amok, kind of ruining your entire day, this is a fantastic item just to get for that. And yeah, that's basically the options. Down here, I've got some things kind of I'm trying to experiment with, how I kind of trying to test the vibe out. We've got extra regen, which I mentioned earlier. I prefer healing right over this generally because healing right gives you more healing. It gives you movement speed. You can heal through jungle mobs. It's just nice. It's just nicer, I think, overall. But if you're like super stuck in lane, you feel like you can't get out, or if you kind of don't like to use actives, which sometimes I feel like, extra regen is fine. You get that. You get 1 extra ammo, 2 extra ammo, I think. With the 8% ammo, you get health regen. It's just nice. High velocity mags, they make it easier for you to CS, but with this character, you probably are going to be mostly CSing with your melee. This is good. Really, I feel like it's good with spamming your right mouse button, which we'll get into in a little bit. Spamming your right mouse button to in lane, basically, to deal more damage and keep pressure up on the enemy laner. Enchanter's Barrier, I like the Spirit Shield, I like the Spirit Power, but I think the items that I've gotten here already are just better. You'd potentially buy this instead of Soul Rebirth if you are strapped on cash, they're about to end the game, and you've got 4 slots, and you just need something to fill that slot, because filling slots in this game is super important. It is a nice to have item. Point Blank, once again, you probably get this before Spiritual Overflow. I think Spiritual Overflow is better. It's once again, if you're kind of like, you don't have the slots for it, you don't want to sell close quarters, or you don't have enough money for it, buy Point Blank. It's 3,000 if you've already got close quarters. It's gonna be a nice to have. Enduring Spirit, I like this item. I had it in the build initially. I had it just after Hollow Point wards. It's good. You get Spirit Lifesteal, you get Spirit Power, you get bonus health. You're gonna be dealing more damage, but I felt that by the time I kind of wanted this in the build, because I wanted to kind of max out a bit of sustain, like sustain in lane, and then like more sustain with bullet shield health into Soul Shredders, which is going to be basically how you're dealing a lot of your damage early on. I just felt that I was selling it too early to make it worth it. I was kind of just minus 250 gold a lot of the time because I'd go straight into buying Healbane. So I didn't feel it necessary. If you feel like you want that little bit of extra lifesteal, if you feel like you want that little bit of extra spirit power, it's nice to have here, but you can probably experiment around with that. I'm still trying to find a way that I kind of want it in the build, but it'd probably be buying it way earlier, but then you're a bit later to your Soul Shredders, and by this point we're probably already jungling, and I feel like you don't kind of need it. And lastly, we have Superior Stamina. Now, I really like Superior Stamina. Superior Stamina is a really nice item to have, especially with your ult. Being able to dash 2 times in succession is really nice to have when you need to get into or out of a fight. If you are, in a fight, it's not going well, you can always just instantly kind of you ult, or you're in ult, you can kind of cross the map extremely quickly, especially with Connect Dash, which basically gives you an extra dash for free. You can really disengage quite rapidly. I really like this item. I just kind of haven't found a way to put it in very efficiently, because enduring speed is really nice for the move speed and the movement slow reduction, which will be, if you ever play into a Kelvin, you know how bad that movement slow feels. So I'd rather get enduring speed at the moment, and kind of Connect Dash does kind of do the same job in a way. You just kind of have to hope you haven't accidentally air dashed, jump dashed, I guess, during a fight, so you have it for your disengaging. So that is the basics of the kind of build. This is generally what your end game build will look like most of the time. Obviously, if you do go further, you will kind of fill out some of these things. You'll replace them with other things. It's a very solid build. It means that you can basically keep your ult up all the time. You have a super long duration on your ult, more than you need. You'll basically come out of every ult with full health, or you will out heal most of the damage that things can do unless they are bursting you. It's a super nice build for this character. Now, as I mentioned, I imagine they are going to change a bunch of things about this character so over the course of development, so it's not always going to apply. I will continue to iterate on this build throughout the patches and kind of make it better and kind of figure out what is really the best build for this character, because I think there are other things. You might be asking, well, this is a spirit forward character, why don't we run Boundless Spirit? I like Boundless Spirit, but for its price, I don't think you really necessarily need it. For 9,800, almost 10k gold, you are either getting this really late or you are rushing it and you are missing out on a lot of other items. It is nice. It is nice to deal 500 damage on a 1. With it maxed out, it becomes 700 damage. You are almost one-shotting a lot of characters. You are probably two-shotting most characters with that at this point in the game. Like, even me with Soul Rebirth and everything, I'm getting two-shot by that. 1600, we're getting two-shot by that. I just think that for the price, there are better things that you can buy, especially for sustained. Things like Soul Rebirth is going to give you a lower cooldown reduction. Things like that. Healing Booster obviously is cheaper. It's going to give you more sustain. Torment Pulse, I think, is absolutely necessary. You cannot play this build essentially without Torment Pulse. Escalating, obviously, with Torment Pulse. You could technically get it instead of Burst, but once again, it's a price problem. This item is 3,500. Boundless Spirit is significantly more than that. It is nice with Mystic Reaver, but I don't think unless you're getting rid of Cold Front, you can fit both of them into the build. And also by that point, you are at like an hour-long game with Boundless, unless you rush Boundless. So I don't think it's, at this point in time, I don't think it is worth it for the price, and I'd rather just kind of focus on living as long as possible and spamming out as many cooldowns as possible to ensure you are going through the fight. My mic was muted. Well, I hope you enjoyed or like learned something from that. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out this build. If you find the building game, I'm not sure what I'm going to call it just yet, but it's probably going to be something along the lines of Kari's 1v11 Spirit Yamato build. I've put annotations on almost every item in the build, so you should get a good idea of kind of when you're supposed to buy things and everything. Please feel free to use it. If you come up with anything or you think it needs any improvements, I'm in the Discord. Shoot me a message, link me a message. I might throw up a guide in there as well. Leave it in the comments below. Whatever you think, any feedback is greatly appreciated. You can also come over to me on Twitch at Karitzu, IKARITZU. I'll be live playing that game like basically every day, so I'm probably live generally during the OCE times. So it is, I think, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time to 2 a.m. generally. So if you're around, feel free to come drop in, say hi. Yeah, if you learned anything, I hope so. Yeah. I'll come out with those other videos hopefully soon. I really want to do them. I'm really interested in them. I plan on making a lot of deadlock content just because it's kind of reignited my passion for making things, which I lost a long time ago. I kind of get the same vibe as I did from Titanfall back in the day. So we'll see. Hopefully, you know, I'm really excited for this game and I really want to keep doing stuff for it. So please feel free to use the build and tell me how you go with it. Tell me if there's any issues or anything you think could be improved, and I'll be happy to work it in there somewhere. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.